Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is part 3 of the recorded lecture for the topic nuisance. Okay, in part 2, we have covered the elements of private nuisance and factors affecting reasonableness. So we discussed the first factor, which is nature of harm and locality, okay, extent of harm and locality. So now the second factor which the court might consider to determine reasonableness or not, okay, utility. Okay, utility of what? Utility of the defendant's conduct. So what does it mean here? Defendant's conduct may be considered reasonable, okay, if the act or if the conduct or if the activities is beneficial or it is very useful to society. So generally, construction of schools, okay, hospitals, power station, etc., okay, and so forth. These are all considered necessary for public benefit. So in that situation, most of the cases, they are decided in favor or favorable to the defendant. Okay, we have a few cases to discuss. Okay, the first case is a common law case in 1913, very old, Adams and Ursel. So it involves smell. So this is in relation to comfort, okay, amenity. So smell from a dry fish shop. So the court held that it constitutes a nuisance to nearby residents. So we have the full facts here, okay. All right. So defendant was in trade. That's a picture or illustration there. Okay, defendant was in the trade of selling fried fish. And in terms of location, the shop was located in the residential part of a street. And now plaintiff was not happy, was not comfortable, okay, with this activities or with the smell. So plaintiff filed for an injunction. But when defendant was being sued here, defendant argued that his business benefited the public, especially the poor, and therefore, okay, the smell produced by his trade was justified. But on the balance of probabilities here, the court gave decision or held that the defense failed. So the court didn't accept the defense here because why? In terms of balancing the rights and interests here. So plaintiff comfort and convenience also had to be considered. And this business actually, it only benefit a small number of people. Okay, so it's not really for public as a whole. So that's why the defense was, was not accepted or the court was not convinced with the defense here. So we have another case. All right, Canaway and Thompson. Here, Canaway, she's a lady. So she built her house somewhere near, on her land, but nearby a lake. And actually, in the lake, there was a water skiing and motorboat racing club. All these activities, water activities. And then, she brought the case to the court, and the court held that, yes, it amounts to nuisance. All the members of a boating club were found liable because why? Their boats were causing a nuisance, which is excessive noise on the lake. And yes, this activity give benefit, but then again, balancing the interest here. So even if defendant's activity give benefit to society generally or a small part of society, but it does not justify this substantial interference. So in terms of reasonableness, it's not really reasonable. So the noise from defendant's activities exceeded, so the court looked into this as well, exceeded the level of give and take expected between neighbors. So that's a decision again, it amounts to nuisance. We have another case. All right, this is local case from Malaysia. Perbadanan Pengurusan Taman Bukit Jambul and Kerajaan Malaysia. It happened in Penang. So it's about government clinic here, construction or setting up a government clinic. Defendant renovated some units in the flat. It's the building is a flat. So managed by plaintiff in order to set up a government clinic. And during renovation work, so we can expect all certain inconvenience. So plaintiff argued that the renovation was not only conducted without the approval, the approval of that management of the flat, but it caused, that's the nuisance factor, it caused pipe and drain blockage. And also, they argued renovated units intruded into the common 5-foot pathway, so it caused nuisance in that sense. Okay, what did the court decide? All right. The court actually didn't accept the argument, so the court denied the plaintiff claim asking for injunction here. And this is the finding. I mean, this is the reason or ratio of the judgment or decision here. So whether something amounted to nuisance or not, okay, must be considered with reference to local circumstances and surrounding. Because why? I mean, this sentence is very important. An inconvenience does not necessarily give rise to an actionable nuisance. I mean, we might find lots of inconvenience here and there. And then the court look at the main purpose of the renovation, which is government clinic. Okay? It will affect the whole people in that area. So the purpose of the renovation provided substantial public benefit. And actually, whatever inconvenience here is just merely temporary. So on the facts even, okay, the court look at the facts that defendant had provided a new 5-foot way, I mean alternative route, and so no nuisance actually was created in this aspect. So this is actually in relation to the second argument about the intrusion of the common 5-foot pathway. That's alternative pathway actually built by the contractor. All right, so that's basically the second factor in which the court will consider. So it might or it might not amount to nuisance depending on the facts and depending how beneficial the activity or the act or the conduct is. Okay, the third factor which the court might consider or which might be relevant depending on the scenario or factual situation here, abnormal sensitivity of plaintiff. How abnormal, okay, plaintiff is. So an overly sensitive person who is disturbed, okay, very easily because every person has different level of tolerance. So will not be awarded damages for nuisance that does not substantially interfere with his property. So when does it happen here? This often happens in cases where a plaintiff is complaining of, for example, oh, I mean, the neighbor created such a loud noise or even offensive odor smell here, right? So just because a plaintiff has an overly sensitive sense of smell, so it does not mean that he will be awarded damages here. So what the court will do, okay, the court will see whether, okay, the smell here, it must be found to substantially offend the average person. So that's basically the measurement. So if too sensitive, then cannot claim. It must be average. It's like reasonableness test as well. Okay, so this is an example of cases. Okay, we have this case abnormal Robinson and Kilvert, it involved sensitive paper. We have another case for comparison purpose after this. This is 1889. Okay. Plaintiff claim was for damage to abnormally sensitive paper. So this paper were being stored in a cellar, okay, which was affected by heat from adjoining premises. So that's basically the illustration there. Okay. But the court denied the claim. Plaintiff claim failed because why? Ordinary paper will not have been affected by the temperature. I mean, for all other kinds of paper, it's okay. Only this very sensitive or fragile paper. So the court didn't allow the claim. Okay, if we twist the facts a little bit, okay, what if other papers also will be damaged due to heat here? Then plaintiff can claim here. Okay, the court look into whether uh, ordinary paper will be affected or damaged or not here. So this is the case. All right. In comparison to Robinson and Gilbert, this one it involve flowers or orchids. So McKinnon Industries and Walker here, this is 1951. All right. So, the rule that we extract here, if the activity of defendant interferes with ordinary use of land, okay, so defendant can still be liable to plaintiff even if plaintiff activities have special sensitivities here. So, the case is McKinnon Industries and Walker. So, fume from defendant's factory, it damaged delicate orchids because the orchids, exposed to this fume and then it damaged the orchids. So as the fume actually will have damaged flowers of ordinary sensitivity. I mean, all other flowers will be damaged by the same fume. So the court held that there was a nuisance here. I mean, this is in comparison to just now the case Robinson and Kilbert here. Right. Okay, another case is 1908, Heath and Mayor of Brighton. This is to show if overly sensitive person cannot claim. So plaintiff, they were trustees of a church, and in terms of a locality, defendant built an electric substation next door. I mean, very nearby. And now plaintiff sought injunction, okay, saying that the humming sound, so from the substation, there's humming sound, okay, humming sound emitted could be heard in the church. So it affects his activities here. But the court held that actually all other persons, all other people who are in the church, actually they are not being disturbed. So a person cannot impose a higher standard of quiet. I mean, you cannot say, oh, you have to be quiet. Because why? This is a church area. On their neighbors, just because they are engaged in a delicate or sensitive task like quiet prayer or meditation. So the law of nuisance protects the ordinary, reasonable person. It doesn't protect overly sensitive person. So not the extraordinarily sensitive person. So the court found that the noise did not bother, okay, ordinary people in the area, even in the church, okay, only plaintiff were being affected. Nor did it physically distract the congregation, okay, the church activities from hearing the people in the church from hearing the service. So that's why the court didn't allow the injunction. All right, that's basically the third factor which might determine reasonableness. Okay, the fourth one is about temporary injuries. Because why? Essentially, the rule is that nuisance is a continuing wrong. Wrong. But then, what if it's just merely isolated happenings? So it depends again, what's the nature of the happenings here? So if isolated happenings or temporary injury, so the court will not grant injunction except in exceptional circumstances. I mean, normally no, but then it depends, okay, on the situation. So the court may still allow injunction for isolated happening. Remember we discussed Walton and Staines, I think we discussed in part one of Tort Law, okay, when we discussed negligence, duty of care, breach of duty of care. All right, Bolton and Stone. So this is House of Blood division. So Miss Stone, she was injured when she was struck by a cricket ball. So it's about cricket, okay? When we discuss a degree, okay, of the likelihood of negligence to happen. So Miss Stone was injured when she was struck by a cricket ball outside her home. So actually, she claimed under both nuisance and negligence. So she brought an action against the cricket club in nuisance and negligence. So this is basically the illustration, how it happened here, and also all the measurement, okay, how far or the distance from her and the cricket field or the play the game, okay, the area. So, all right, there's a witness as well, okay, in this case, a witness who live in the same road, okay, as the claimant, as Miss Stone, okay, but close to the page, said that 5 or 6 times, but during the stretch or period of 30 years. So it's very, very rare, okay. So he had known balls hit his house or come into the yard. Usually no, okay. So that's why the court held that. I mean, the court looked into many factors here, and the court also looked at the likelihood of harm was very low. So defendant had taken all practical precautions in the circumstances, and the cricket ground had been there for 19 years without injury. And also, the court looked at the element of factor of utility, provided a useful service for the community. Sorry. So nuisance usually requires a continuous, or I mean, that's the rule. Okay, nuisance usually requires a continuous or repetitive state of affairs. So because a ball being hit into the road was such a rare, I mean, it doesn't happen often, okay, very, very rare, okay, an isolated occurrence. So that's why the court said, well, it did not amount to a continuing condition that made the use of the cricket ground a nuisance. So it doesn't amount to nuisance here. Okay. All right, so let's continue with another case. Okay, I mean, what does it mean by interference must be continuous here? So this is the case British Celanese and Hunt Capacitors Limited 1969. It involves strips of metal fall. I mean, can be blown, okay, by wind. So had blown from defendant's land where it was stored, and this metal fall had damaged an electricity substation. So it caused the electricity, blackout, okay, causing the electricity to an industrial estate to be cut off. And then in terms of how often it happened here, so it had occurred once in a few years previously because of the way in which the material was stored. I mean, the nature, why it was stored in such a way. So anytime actually the fall can be blown by the wind. So it happens once in few years, okay. So the court held that it doesn't amount to nuisance here, despite that it doesn't really happen often, but it happens once in every few years. I mean, after few years, it happened again. After few years, it happened again. So the court held that yes, okay, a private nuisance was established. Because why? Although the act of the fall blowing away was caused by the wind, okay, but the court held that the defendant had created a continuous state of affairs, okay, the way they store the fall here, okay, in a way that it could easily escape and cause harm. So actually, that's amounts to nuisance. And the moment the fall get blown by the wind, so and then it cause a blackout. So obviously, it's a nuisance. I mean, this is a continuous in that sense. Okay, compare with this one. This is about firework. Okay, here. So Crown River, very old, 1914, but we have come firework even nowadays. Okay, firework show. So Crown River cruises and Kimbleton fireworks here, 1914. The court held that a firework display, okay, constituted a nuisance, okay, when it was inevitable. So it happens for 15 to 20 minutes, not 1 to 3 minutes. Okay, it's quite a period of time here. Okay. So debris, okay, whatever things okay, which fall, debris of flammable nature, okay, will fall upon nearby property, and then this debris damage the property in the during. I mean after during the flame or during the fireworks show. That's why it is a nuisance. All right. So in terms of continuous interference here, because it happened for quite some time, 15 to 20 minutes here. And again, about continuous interference just now, okay, exception for single interference. I mean, yes, still, if even though it is single interference, can it still amount to nuisance? So a defendant will be liable for a single interference if physical damage. So the court look at the factor. Is there any physical damage or not? Okay, remember, nuisance is not actionable per se. So there's a damage, then you can take action. So physical damage befell the plaintiff. So that's the case of Spicer and Smith, 1946 here. Landowner was liable for what? For a fire caused by a defects in the property's electrical wiring. So it's single spark and it caused fire here. All right. So in this case, the court said, well, no need to prove a continuous interference whatsoever. Okay. Nuisance has been held to extend even to isolated escapes like this here. And what's the reason? So the court noted that isolated interference, okay, I mean, exceptionally can be considered nuisance with the condition, I mean, that's the condition, that it results in a dangerous situation on the defendant's premises. So it causes damage actually to the, I mean, to the victim or to the plaintiff here. That's why even though it's isolated happening or isolated escape, so still, or isolated interference, still it amounts to nuisance. Generally, no, but exceptionally, yes. All right, let's move forward. Okay, and this is example from a case in Malaysia. Okay, 1960 MLJ, Tian Chu and the Seaport Selangor Rubber Estate Limited. Here, I mean, this is to explain the exception to the rule just now. This one, all right, similar to Spicer and Smee. So isolated act can sometimes can be regarded as a nuisance if a dangerous state of affairs is allowed to exist on the land. I mean, before actual nuisance happened, there was a dangerous state of affairs okay, before it happened. So a diseased rubber tree fell on a highway and it killed a lorry driver. So defendant failed to remedy the dangerous state of affairs that existed on the land. That is, the deceased tree was allowed to rot. Okay, it become rotten and then it fall onto the highway and kill a lorry driver. So thus a disaster was waiting to happen. I mean, anytime, okay, the rotten tree might fall and it actually fall and kill, okay, a lorry driver. It caused the death of this lorry driver. Okay, last factor that the court will consider, malice, okay, or we have the word malicious, okay, malice or ill intention here, or bad intention. So malice may render the defendant's act unreasonable. I mean, we'll see, okay, when defendant did his act, does his act, is it with malice or not? Okay, there must be ill or bad intention. So if malice can be shown, can be proved on the parts of defendant's action, so the interference is considered a nuisance, even though it might be reasonable. Why? Because the presence of malice here. So this is the case, Christie and Davy. 1893. So plaintiff actually has conducted certain music lessons, okay, in his semi D, okay, for, house for several years. It has been ongoing for many years. And defendant was irritated, okay, by the noise. So he actually retaliate. That shouldn't be the way, all right? So he banged on the wall. I mean, he tried to disturb, okay, the lesson, banged on the wall, shouted. I mean, he did all these things, okay, blew whistles and beat tin trays. So this is all malicious intention of annoying his neighbor and also spoiling the music lessons. So the court allowed the injunction, okay, to restrain defendant's behavior. And why? I mean, why the lesson was there and it doesn't amount to nuisance here. The music lessons was for a legitimate purpose, that is for education. And actually, it benefits the society as well. So maybe for one case, okay, there might be few factors that the court will consider. And overall, whether it amounts to nuisance or not here. All right. Okay, another case to illustrate malice, application of malice here. Hollywood Silver Fox Farm and Emmett, 1936 here. So defendant motivated by pure malice, okay, he deliberately, okay, purposely, intentionally fired guns near the boundary of plaintiff land. I mean, on his own land, but just near the boundary. So what's the reason here? What's the intention? In order to scare plaintiff silver foxes during breeding time. I mean, he was not happy with a plaintiff activities here. All right. So now, is it nuisance? Yes, it is. There was malice here. All right. The defendant was held liable for nuisance. Okay, all right. So this is the last slide before we adjourn. And then this is, all right, before we end the part 3 of the recorded lecture. Okay, compared with, I mean, the court came to a different conclusion or decision in the case of Bradford Corporation and Pickles. This is 1895. Here, what happened was that, okay, defendant deliberately, okay, purposely diverted water flowing through his land. I mean, on his land, there's a water flow, okay? And then when he did so, I mean, he was doing whatever act on his land away from his neighbor's property. And what's the reason here behind this? Okay, he intended, okay, to force them to buy his land at an inflated price, higher price, okay, increased price here. But the court held that here, plaintiff, when he did whatever he did on his land, okay, was committing no legal wrong. Because why? No one has a right to uninterrupted supplies of water which percolates, okay, which flow, okay, through from adjoining property. So you cannot stop your neighbors from doing whatever he like with his water flow on his land here. All right, so this is the case. I mean, this is division in Bradford Corporation and Pickle. There is some other cause of action actually in which that's why I mean plaintiff I mean committed no legal wrong whatsoever here. I mean plaintiff has the right in doing what he's supposed to do. All right, I think that's all for this part 3 of nuisance. Okay, so I think I stop here.